What happens when a football coach becomes the biggest obstacle standing between his team and success? On a crisp Sunday night in London, the Cleveland Browns didn't just lose a football game, they ignited a full-blown international scandal. In the bright lights of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with 61,000 fans watching live and millions more streaming worldwide, the Browns walked off the field not just beaten, but exposed. It wasn't about the scoreboard, it wasn't about stats. It was about something much bigger unfolding in real time, something no one inside that stadium could ignore. One quarterback was failing on the field. The other stood on the sideline. Silent, ready, ignored. And by the time the crowd started chanting his name, it was already too late. Fans were furious. The locker room was fractured. And the entire NFL world was asking the same question. Why is Shedeur Sanders still on the bench? Because what happened in London wasn't just a coaching decision, it was a turning point that could define the future of this franchise, or destroy it completely. Let's break down exactly how one game exposed everything wrong with the Cleveland Browns, and how the refusal to play a fifth-round rookie might go down as one of the most costly decisions in recent NFL history. It was supposed to be a statement, a global showcase. The NFL handpicked the Cleveland Browns to represent American football on an international stage, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, pristine turf, sparkling lights, and a sold-out crowd of over 60,000 fans eager for spectacle. What they got was a disaster. On paper, the game looked close. The final score? 21-17. But numbers lie. This wasn't competitive football, it was systematic humiliation. From opening kickoff to the final whistle, the Browns sputtered like a team without purpose, identity, or direction. And it all started, as it always seems to, with the quarterback. Dillon Gabriel, the hand-picked starter, put up deceptively decent numbers: 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 59% completion rate. Respectable, until you actually watched the game. Behind every stat was a meltdown waiting to happen. Critical third downs failed. Momentum-building drives, non-existent. Decision-making, slow, shocky, hesitant. For 3 straight quarters, Gabriel's pocket presence crumbled under pressure. His throws drifted, his reads came late. And with every stalling drive, the frustration in the stadium grew not just among fans, but on the sideline. Because just yards away from the chaos stood Shedeur Sanders' helmet strapped, fully suited, eyes locked on the field, ready for a moment that never came. As the Browns went 3 and out again and again, Sanders remained planted, watching, waiting, burning. And the crowd noticed. Oh, did they notice? By the fourth quarter, with Cleveland trailing and desperation rising, chants started echoing through the stands. "We want Shedeur! We want Shedeur!" These weren't even lifelong Browns fans. Many were Europeans seeing their first NFL game. They didn't know the team history. They didn't need to. They saw what was obvious to everyone. One quarterback was out of gas. The other hadn't even left the garage. And yet, nothing changed. Kevin Stefanski refused to pull the trigger. He stuck with his plan, his guy, his pride. Even as millions watched the team unravel on a stage built for greatness, by the time the final whistle blew, it wasn't just a loss. It was an organizational collapse broadcast to the world. A team with playoff hopes looked like a franchise in freefall. And the anger didn't stop at the fans. Inside the locker room, on social media, and across sports networks, the real firestorm was just getting started. Because once you dig deeper into the numbers and the decisions behind them, you realize the biggest threat to the Browns isn't their opponent, it's themselves. Numbers can lie, especially when they're used to protect a failing narrative. At a glance, Dillon Gabriel didn't have the worst stat line. 2 touchdowns, nearly 200 yards. Solid completion rate. But when you break it down, every passing number becomes a red flag. Gabriel's average depth of target? Just 5.8 yards. His completions beyond 15 yards? 2, all game. Most of his production came from screens and short routes, plays designed to avoid risk, not take control. That's not how you win games. That's how you survive them. Even worse, Gabriel's time to throw clocked in at one of the fastest in the league that week, just under 3 seconds. But it wasn't quick decision-making. It was panic. He wasn't standing tall in the pocket. He was dumping the ball before plays could develop, afraid to let anything breathe. And now, here's where things get impossible to ignore. Because while the Browns' offense continued to stall, chunk by chunk, play after play, the quarterback the team actually needed was still holding his helmet. Shedeur Sanders didn't miss the moment. The moment missed him. He had the arm, the mobility, the fire. And most dangerously for the Browns coaching staff, he had the pressure of expectation. Everyone, from scouts in the stands to fans on Twitter, knew he could change the pace instantly. He just needed the call. But head coach Kevin Stefanski didn't budge. Not when the offense collapsed in the fourth quarter. Not even after 3 straight 3-and-outs. Not as an entire stadium turned on his decision in real time. The question now isn't why Sanders didn't play. We know that answer: coaching stubbornness, pride, control. The question has become, at what cost? Because this goes beyond one game. This is about trust in the locker room, with the fan base. Even from league officials who watched Cleveland blow a global opportunity it may not get again. And what started as a quarterback competition has now transformed into something much uglier, a full-blown credibility crisis for everyone involved. So ask yourself, if your starter is stalling, your playmakers are frustrated, and your backup is NFL ready, why is your season riding on the guy who can't deliver? Because everything boiled over when cameras caught the moment that may define this controversy forever, and it didn't happen between the whistles. He stood there, helmet on, gloves tightened, as if he was about to take the field. But he never did. While the Cleveland offense unraveled in front of a global audience, Shedeur Sanders didn't just sit quietly. He paced, he watched, he waited. And then the cameras saw him. In one now viral clip, Sanders stands alone on the sideline, his gaze locked on the field as Dillon Gabriel lofts another incomplete pass, one that sails past the receiver, hopeless. Sanders slowly removes his helmet, shakes his head, and looks away. No words, just body language. And it said everything. That single clip racked up 3.7 million views overnight, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt real. Viewers from across the globe saw what fans back in Cleveland have seen for years, a moment of silent frustration that said more than any press conference ever could. He wasn't sulking, he wasn't shouting, he just looked defeated. And somehow, that hit harder. And the fans? They responded instantly. By the start of the fourth quarter, the chants started building inside the stadium, something rarely heard in a London crowd. We want Shedeur. It wasn't just loud, it was unified. And it only grew louder with every stalled drive, every missed conversion, every moment where it was clear this game was slipping away. And this is where things shifted from simply bad coaching to public humiliation. Because this wasn't a Twitter debate. This wasn't a podcast segment or Monday morning analyst take. This was the international fan base, unburdened by years of Cleveland politics, seeing the obvious solution planted on the sideline and being ignored. Even British broadcasters couldn't pretend to stay neutral. One Sky Sports commentator said it flatly. The Browns had the answer and still chose not to use it. By the time the final whistle blew, Sanders had taken exactly 0 snaps. And the message was clear. This wasn't a football strategy, this was a statement. But to who? The fans? The front office? Ownership? That's the part that's still unraveling. At any point in the second quarter, the third, or during that brutal fourth, Kevin Stefanski could have flipped the script. He could have made the call that every fan, analyst, and even opposing player saw coming. He didn't. Instead of adapting, he clung to a plan that was already crumbling. Dillon Gabriel stayed in the game from start to finish, never pulled, never questioned, despite evidence piling up in real time. And the reason? According to reports inside the organization, this wasn't an in-game decision. This was premeditated. Sources say this goes all the way back to a training camp suspension, an internal incident that, while never fully explained publicly, pushed Sanders into the background early. Gabriel was immediately reinstalled as the starter after a brief organizational mediation, despite lackluster preseason performances. Sanders handled the demotion like a pro, kept quiet, put in the work, focused on growth. But make no mistake, frustration simmered underneath. Across practices, coaches and players saw the same thing, a quarterback with elite tools showing up every day ready to compete, and a staff that had already made up its mind. Stefanski remained loyal to one thing above all, the plan. But in the NFL, loyalty can be a liability. Because this wasn't about giving Dillon Gabriel a fair shot anymore, this was about protecting a decision, even if it killed momentum, even if it risked the locker room, even if it burned the season. Insiders now say Stefanski rejected a suggestion from GM Andrew Barry mid-game to insert Sanders late in the fourth quarter. Gabriel had earned the start in practice, and the decision had already been made. End of discussion. But here's the thing about football. It's not played in meetings or on depth charts or in preseason tape. It's played in moments. And if you're not willing to change your mind in the moment will break you. Coaching decisions shape legacies. And Stefanski's legacy, which once looked promising Coach of the Year, playoff victories, respect around the league, is now spiraling toward a single headline: the coach who let his ego lose the game. You can lose a game and keep a team together. You can even drop back-to-back games and bounce back stronger. But when your players stop believing in their coach, that's the moment everything falls apart. By the time the Browns were boarding the team plane back from London, the silence wasn't just awkward, it was boiling beneath the surface. According to multiple insider reports, veterans confronted Kevin Stefanski directly during the flight. What started as a quiet conversation quickly turned into something much louder and much harder to walk back. Frustrations that had been building for weeks buried under film sessions and TeamSpeak interviews finally broke loose. One offensive lineman reportedly said, "We're wasting opportunities. Everyone sees it except the guys calling the plays." Another player, anonymous but confirmed by local media, put it bluntly, "He's lost the locker room." And that wasn't just emotional overreaction. It was a reflection of cold reality. Even the team's defensive captain, whose unit had kept the game within reach despite the offense sputtering, was overheard speaking off record. Defense played well enough to win. Offense needs a spark, and we all know who has it. The trust that Stefanski had spent years carefully building from draft rooms to locker room speeches started crumbling in a matter of hours. And it wasn't just the vets speaking up. Younger players, especially rookies and second-year talent, felt confused and disillusioned. They'd watched Sanders outperform expectations at practice, studied his film, respected his leadership. But when game day came, none of that mattered. One rookie told a beat reporter privately, "It makes no sense. The guy can play. We're trying to win games. The best players should play. That's football 101. It's moments like this that fracture a team not just strategically, but emotionally. A locker room built around talent and trust starts collapsing under doubt. The sideline gestures, the missed throws, the viral clips, none of those were flukes. They were the public side of something deeply internal, a team trying to hold itself together while the coaching staff refuses to bend. And if the fractures weren't obvious on the flight home, they were unmistakable within 48 hours when Cleveland fans took matters into their own hands. For most fan bases, a loss in London would sting. For Cleveland Browns fans, it felt like déjà vu. Because this wasn't just a coaching blunder, it was a scene ripped straight from a franchise horror film they've been watching for decades. One disappointing quarterback after another, one stubborn coach after another, and one wasted opportunity after the next. They've seen this pattern before. And that's what makes it so painful. Fans weren't just furious after the London game, they were traumatized. Not from the score, but from what it symbolized. Another roster with real potential being dragged down by decisions that make no football sense. They've watched promising quarterbacks get buried while less capable ones are protected. They've seen coaches refuse to adapt, ruining momentum out of pride. And year after year, game after game, they've watched dysfunction win. London wasn't just a game lost. It was history repeating itself. That is why the reaction was immediate and emotional. Less than 24 hours after the game, Cleveland supporters had already organized a petition calling for Stefanski's firing with over 15,000 signatures in the first day. Fan forums lit up. Hashtags trended. Podcasts erupted. Everyone, across every platform, was delivering a unified message. Enough is enough. And here's what makes all of this even more devastating. The 2025 Browns weren't supposed to be this team. They had talent, a championship-caliber defense, a revamped offensive line, explosive weapons on both sides of the ball. Everything pointed to this being a real, serious run. Even people outside of Ohio believed that, for once, this team might have finally gotten it right. But Browns fans know better. They've seen what happens when dysfunction seeps back in through the cracks. It doesn't ask questions, it takes over. It's that creeping feeling that no matter how good the roster is, it won't matter, because the wrong people are making the wrong decisions again. The Shedeur Sanders situation became the symbol. He's young, talented, ready, hopeful. Everything that Browns fans want to believe in squashed under the same leadership patterns that have kept this team trapped in neutral for decades. Every time Sanders sat idly on the bench in London, it wasn't just a missed opportunity to win a game, it was another brick stacked on a wall fans have been screaming at for 25 years. That's why London hurt. Not because it was made for international audiences, not because cameras caught every mistake, but because it confirmed the darkest fear Browns fans carry deep down. We're watching another wasted season, and we already know how it ends. The fans weren't the only ones demanding answers. The entire NFL world was watching and reacting. Within hours of the final whistle, national media pounced. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith lit up morning television. You flew across the ocean, put your best quarterback on the sideline, and lost in front of the world? That's not bad coaching, that's sabotage. Skip Bayless went further. Shedeur Sanders deserved that moment. Cleveland blew it. So who exactly are they protecting? British media followed suit, unfiltered and unsparing. The Guardian called it a tactical meltdown, and Sky Sports labeled the Browns strategically paralyzed. Even European fans, many watching their first ever NFL game, could see what Cleveland refused to admit. Shedeur was ready. Gabriel was not. Stefanski didn't care. Meanwhile, NFL scouts in attendance were blown away, and not by the guy under center. Reports say multiple teams have already been doing background work on Sanders, impressed by how he carried himself even when benched. One NFC executive put it bluntly: Sanders looked ready standing still. Gabriel looked overwhelmed playing. And then came the whispers. Rumors about Stefanski's real motivation. Was he resisting ownership's preference out of spite? Protecting Gabriel's contract escalators? Or worse, tanking Sanders' momentum for a future trade? No proof. Plenty of speculation. And suddenly, the Browns weren't in a quarterback controversy anymore. They were in a full-blown narrative crisis with the entire league watching. This isn't just a controversy anymore, it's a ticking time bomb. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. The season is still young, the playoff hopes aren't completely dead, but with every game that passes, the opportunity window shrinks and the tension multiplies. Insiders report that head coach Kevin Stefanski remains firmly committed to Gabriel. Despite everything, the viral backlash, the fan protests, the locker room unrest, he's doubling down. He's reportedly told staff the same thing every day since London. We evaluate through practice. We don't make emotional decisions. Gabriel earned it. Conviction? Sure. But in the NFL, conviction without results turns into career suicide. And here's the harsh reality. If Gabriel starts again, and the Browns lose again, Stefanski might not survive the month. Because owner Jimmy Haslam? He's watching. And his patience? Historically non-existent. He's fired coaches mid-season before. He's dumped executives without warning. And this time, he feels publicly embarrassed, which makes everything more volatile. One more ugly loss, and the entire staff may be packing before Week 10. Then there's Shedeur Sanders. Every week he sits, his leverage grows. Fans love him. Scouts admire him. His jersey outsells the rest of the roster 3-1. His videos pull millions of views. And now, other teams are circling. Sources say multiple franchises have already inquired about a trade willing to give up serious picks if Cleveland won't unleash him. That level of demand doesn't happen for just a backup. That happens when everyone but your own coaching staff sees a star. And if the Browns don't act soon, they won't just risk the season, they'll lose him entirely. Stefanski has two choices: double down, or admit he was wrong all along. Let Gabriel start another game and risk total collapse, or give Shedeur the keys and possibly spark something special. Both choices come with consequences. But staying in limbo? That's no longer an option. This next game against Jacksonville? It's no longer just a week on the schedule. It's a season-defining moment, a job-defining moment, a franchise-defining decision. The Browns came into 2025 with one of their most talented rosters in recent memory. But now, with dysfunction spreading, fan trust evaporating, and the entire football world watching, the question is no longer if they can win, it's whether they'll let themselves. The Cleveland Browns went to London hoping to prove something to their fans, the league, and maybe even to themselves. What they left with was a mirror, one that reflected everything they've tried to hide for years. Because this wasn't just a blown game. This wasn't about Dylan Gabriel missing throws or Shedeur Sanders standing idle on the sideline. It was something deeper, a franchise paralyzed by pride, a coaching staff unwilling to adapt, and a pattern of dysfunction that seems immune to talent, hope, or even public humiliation. Kevin Stefanski had every chance to make a change. He had the momentum. He had the proof. He had the crowd practically begging him to act. And he didn't. He stuck to the plan, and in doing so, he turned a quarterback competition into a quarterback crisis, a quiet frustration into a locker room split, and a golden international opportunity into a global embarrassment. And now, the damage is done. The fans already know this story too well. They've watched promising seasons dissolve like this before, not because of talent shortages, but because of bad decisions made at the worst possible moments. London just added another scar to a fan base already bleeding. But this time is different, because this time they had a quarterback. A dynamic, prepared, confident quarterback with real juice, real leadership, real upside just standing there, helmet on, watching. And the more he waits, the more people start to ask, what are the Browns really afraid of? Is it the backlash of admitting they backed the wrong guy? Is it a fear that Sanders becomes bigger than the system? Or is it simply the kind of pride that destroys progress before it can grow? Whatever it is, it's festering, and it's turning a season full of potential into a full-blown identity crisis. If Stefanski doesn't make the switch soon, the locker room could fully unravel. Trade rumors could become realities. And Shedeur Sanders, the player they drafted to be the future, could become just another name on the list of wasted Cleveland talent. But the Browns haven't lost the season yet. The question isn't whether it can be salvaged. The question is, will they fix the problem or let it destroy them again?